broadcast of the regular meeting of the Minneapolis Local Board of Appeal and Equalization will now begin.
Good morning. Welcome to the live broadcast of our virtual meeting. This meeting includes the remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021 due to the declared local health pandemic. For the record, my name is Neil Anderson, and I am Chair of the Local Board of Appeal and Equalization. I will now call this meeting to order. The open meeting law requires a roll call vote to be conducted during a virtual meeting, and a certification form will be completed for each local board meeting. This initial roll call will allow the city assessor to complete the certification form on behalf of the board members with a verbal signature. Will the clerk call the roll so that we may verify the presence of a quorum?
Board Member Bland.
Here.
Board Member Havoc.
Here.
Board Member Reed.
Here.
Board Member Tinker.
Present.
Chair Anderson.
Present.
With 5 ayes, there is a quorum present.
Let the record reflect the quorum of the board is present. We will proceed to the agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access to the city's legislative information management system, which is available at lims.minneapolismn.gov. Members, the agenda is before you for your consideration. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Seconded. Havoc.
It has been moved by Bland, seconded by Havoc to adopt the agenda. With that, I will ask the clerk to call roll on the motion.
Board Member Bland.
Aye.
Board Member Havoc.
Aye.
Board Member Reed.
Aye.
Board Member Tinker.
Aye.
Chair Anderson.
Aye.
With 5 ayes, the motion passes.
That motion passes and the agenda as printed is adopted. Before we begin the call on appeals, let me summarize the process for conducting hearings in this virtual format. First, we will call on the applicant, who will be given 5 minutes to present their appeal. When your case is called, you will need to press *6 on your phone to activate your microphone. We ask that you state your name and address for the record and then present your appeal to the board. Next, we will call on the assessor staff, and they will be given 5 minutes to present their report to the board. Finally, the board will have 5 minutes for questions on the case. The board will then consider and take action on the cases heard at the end of each meeting day, and property owners will be notified of the decision by mail after the board has adjourned. With that, item number 3, 2301 Emerson Avenue North, case number 20-038, case number 20-0308. I'll ask the clerk to identify the speaker in the queue for the appeal related to 2301 Emerson Avenue North.
Mr. Chair, the applicant Tim Johnson is in the queue. Mr. Johnson, please press *6 to unmute, state your name and address for the record, and then proceed with your comments to the board.
Hi, Timothy Johnson, 2301 Emerson Avenue North. This was a recently purchased property that in 2017, and it was purchased at $185,500, and since that time, the tax value has risen 103%, which I think is unreasonable for that area. But going through a couple of things on a square footage basis in Hawthorne and Jordan neighborhoods, properties in the 2,600 to 3,000 square foot area have sold in Hawthorne for about $79 a square foot, and up to 80, and on average $87 a square foot in Jordan. And since I'm on the border of those two neighborhoods, that's why I'm using those two areas. One duplex, a 2323 DuPont, which is 1 block away from my property, sold in late November of 2018 at $72.90 a square foot. similar to, it's a similar square footage property. It actually has one more bedroom. It's a 7-bedroom, 3-bath instead of a 6-bedroom, 2-bath, which my property is. My property has a 3-car garage. This property has a 4-car garage. So I think it's very comparable, and it's only 13 months from the current assessment period, or in January of 2020. So the proposed assessment for my property is like $99.82 a square foot is what's being proposed, and I just don't understand that increase over this period of time. The only sales that have exceeded $100 a square foot in that area are much smaller properties, and generally there's been a discount for the larger square footage on a per square footage basis. There's also been a question that was proposed about the rent value. In 2017, I was getting $1,200 per month for each of these units. I'm currently getting $1,350, which is a 12.5% increase. Again, that doesn't justify the tax increase value driving this. So looking at this particular property in 2017, it was $135,000 was the tax value. I paid more than that for the property at $185,500. The value in 2018 jumped 48%, which is probably a little more reasonable in that it was sold for a higher value. But then it's increased in 2019 another 15% and another 19% in 2020, totaling going up 48% since I bought it less than 3 years ago, or at that time it would have been a little less than 3 years. And just in looking through the information that was out there, I looked at some duplexes in Northeast Minneapolis, which is probably considered one of the fastest growing areas in Minneapolis, and high value because of the restaurants and brew pubs and areas, and that the values have increased rather rapidly there. One property on 1400 Monroe, since 2017, the tax value has increased only 33% over that time. 1125 Washington Avenue Northeast has increased 34.3% in those 3 years since 2017 through 2020. So I'm just not seeing the growth in value in the Jordan and Hawthorne neighborhoods.
Mr. Johnson, you're wrap things up, please.
Okay. Yeah. So I just that's my arguments.
Thank you very much. Now we'll hear from the assessor's staff to present their report to the board.
Chair Anderson, this morning we have Daniel Ayer, Assessor 1, presenting for our office.
Okay, thank you. Daniel?
Good morning, Mr. Chairperson Anderson and members of the board. My name is Dan Ayer. I'm a certified Minnesota assessor and I've been assessing since 2015. I've been with the City of Minneapolis since September of 2019, and I'm presenting for case 20-0308 at 2301 Emerson Avenue North, located in the Jordan neighborhood. Minneapolis's assessed value is at $274,500 for the 2020 estimated market value. After review of comparable sales, the indicated value is at $285,000. A desktop review was conducted on April 13th of this year to verify the features of the property. The subject was built in 1919 and is a 2-story, 2-unit duplex with 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom per unit. The property is 2,758 square feet above grade and has an unfinished basement. The property has 3-stall garage and is located on a busy one-way street with access to public transit. A thorough analysis of similar features was completed to ensure the best available comparable properties have been used. All comps featured 2 units with 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom per unit. Similar to the subject, comps 2, 3, and 4 are all on busy streets. Comparable number 1 is at 2715 Oliver Avenue North, and this property sold for $290,300 on June 12th of 2019. Adjustments were made to the property for market conditions, having 1 less garage stall, having 2 more fireplaces, having a larger gross living area, and having an inferior kitchen. Comparable number 2 is at 2523 Logan Avenue North, which is located on the corner of 26th Avenue. This property sold for $223,750 on May 31st of 2019. Adjustments were made for the market conditions, having a smaller gross living area, having no garage, and having a larger porch. Comparable number 3 is at 1647 Penn Avenue North. Most weight was given to the comparable number 3 for having the lowest net and gross adjustments. This property sold for $278,100 on November 12th of 2019. Adjustments were made for market conditions, having a larger gross living area, having air conditioning, and having no garage. Comparable number 4 was at 1518 Emerson Avenue North. This property sold for $241,515 on May 24th of 2019. Adjustments were made for market conditions, having a smaller gross living area, and having 1 less garage stall. The income capitalization approach was developed and has a reconciled gross rent multiplier of 8.0. I used the market rent of $2,700, and this indicated a GRM value of $260,000. In summary, most weight was placed on the sales approach. The value from the comps ranged from $260,000 to $318,000 and comes to an indicated value of $285,000. This analysis supports the assessed 2020 estimated market value of $274,500. Thank you. And does anyone have any questions at this time?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ayer. I'll ask the board if they have any questions of Mr. Ayer or of Mr. Johnson before we go on to the next case. Bland?
Mr. Johnson, could you tell me again what you are getting in rent currently?
Per unit, it's $13.50 per month.
Thank you.
And I pay water and sewer and garbage, and so.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Johnson, have you done any major improvements to the property since acquiring it?
Just painting and repairs.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board? With that, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Ayers, we'll go on to the next case. Item number 4, 3043 35th Avenue South, case number 20-0083. I'll ask the clerk to identify the speaker in the queue for the appeal related to 3043 35th Avenue South.
Mr. Chair, if you would just pause a minute. I see we have someone entering the lobby.
Okay. Hopefully it'll be the next person.
Thank you. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm uncertain if it's the applicant that has joined. Perhaps the applicant can press, the caller can press *6 and let us know if this is the applicant, Jesse Oman.
It is Jesse. Good morning.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good morning. I'll let the chair give you a summary of the procedure and we will go on to your case.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Oman, we'll call on you and you'll be given 5 minutes to present your appeal. When your case is called, you'll need to press *6 on your phone to activate your microphone. We ask that you state your name and address for the record and then present your appeal to the board. Next, we will follow up with the assessor staff and they'll be given 5 minutes to present their report to the board. Finally, the board will have five minutes for questions in the case to both you and the assessor. And the board will consider and take action on the cases heard at the end of each meeting day, and property owners will be notified of the decision by mail after the board has adjourned. I'll ask the clerk to identify the speaker in the queue for the appeal related to 3043 35th Avenue South. Ms. Hanson? Ms. Hanson, will you introduce the speaker?
I can go ahead and do that, sure.
Okay.
The applicant, Jesse Oman, please identify yourself for the public record as well as your property address and then speak to the board. Thank you.
For the record, my name is Jesse Oman. The property is 3043 35th Avenue South, Minneapolis, Minnesota, 55406.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead with your appeal now. Thank you.
Thank you. I sent over a number of documents. The one I'm going to speak to was a summary one that was included that. I don't know if you have that available for you. 4 main points that I will touch on briefly this morning. The first being the most important. At the end of last year, I actually engaged a real estate agent looking to prep and get my house ready for sale. While we entered the winter season and I didn't sell it at the end of the year and I was going to wait until spring, we were still talking Q4 where I had a real estate agent come in and they pulled 21 comparisons in the neighborhood, walked through my house, took a look at, both all the positives of the remodels that had been done to my house in 2010 prior to me buying, but also some of the negatives where they pulled a lot of that original woodwork out. He told me that he believed my house could sell for $379,000. So really the driver for my appeal today is that disconnect from what I was told there at the end of October to the assessment that's 40 grand more. And that's really where I was challenged with why do I have that big of a difference between those two. I shared 7 out of those 21 comparisons with the assessor. And he did take a look at that and we had some good conversations around it. But he said there was 3 other ones that he pulled that he thought were more relevant to my house. Unfortunately, he said he's not allowed to share that with me. So I wasn't able to take those back to my agent and say, why wouldn't these be what the price of my house is? Because honestly, I would love if my house could sell for the $420,000 that it's showing up for. Obviously, with the environment we're in, as I move to the second point, I couldn't bring an assessor in, which I would love to do at the moment, just so I'm getting a real read on who's wrong here with that large of a difference. I did look at Zillow, not really for the price of my house, but more for the home value index for single value homes in the Longfellow neighborhood. And I went over the past 5 years and I wanted to really see how much had my house increased compared to the neighborhood. Over those 5 years, the neighborhood showed an increase of 42%, but my house shows an increase of 63%, even though no major improvements have been done during that time period. The second thing I tried doing is that I found an online report, moving to item number 3, that was supposed to give you a rundown of your house, called Property Shark. So I paid to have a report run there. Unfortunately, it was not quite as useful as I hoped. It was more of a repeat of what you would have seen on Zillow. But they did have 2 interesting scales in that part there that were based on the 52 properties that they saw had been sold in that zip code in the last 18 months, residential, with a sales price over $25,000. And that report really showed what is the median price in the neighborhood going for, what are the high points, as well as what is the median price per square foot and what are the high points. At the estimate, my sales price would be to the extreme high of the entire neighborhood, as well as the price per square foot would be extremely high. And then the last point that I'd bring up, and I think this one might actually be driving a lot of this and might be the cause for why we have a disconnect here. The assessor was telling me he shows that the square foot of my house is 2,700 square feet. Now that's bigger than I've ever been told from when I bought it to when I've had other people measure it to even when I listed it. All that has come and shown my house at being under 2,100 square feet. Well, obviously that's 600 square feet difference, and that's a huge difference. And that might be driving, I think, why we're having a disconnect here. I asked the assessor if there's any plans or layouts that he had, because I know in the way past, before I owned it, this had been a duplex and someone remodeled it to a single family, if that maybe caused part of it. He didn't, he just had that square footage amount. I did, breaking out the tape measure, a measure from the longest width and to both sides on my main floor, so both width and length, not taking into account any closets, anything else, just the outside walls to the outside walls on the main floor. That comes up to 925 square feet. So to hit that 2,700 square feet, literally I'd have to have that same 925 on the top floor and on the basement. Well, it's a 1.5-story house. The top floor isn't a full 2-story house, so I don't have it there. And the basement isn't completely finished, so I wouldn't have it there. And that's without getting into minusing any stairwells or anything like that. That was literally just that base foundation size. So unless that amount includes something that used to be part of the duplex before, unless it's somehow measuring my unheated entryway or the garage somehow, I just can't come up with that 2,700 square feet, which again, going back to that point 3, seems to be what's driving that extreme square footage price for what I think the square footage of my house is versus what that price is there. So I do want to say, sorry.
If you could wrap up your comments here.
Yep. I will just say that, you know, through the appeal process, you know, pleasant conversations, great work by the city. You know, while I don't agree, I really did appreciate their work in the back and forth and them helping me explain how do I go through this whole process. It was not something you're used to. So thanks to them and thanks to you as well as the board for hearing it today. I know there's a lot going on right now. So with that, I am finished. Appreciate the time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ullman. I'll call on the assessor's office to present their report to the board.
Chair Anderson, this morning we have Scott Stanley, Assessor 1 in our office, presenting the case.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Stanley.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. My name is Scott Stanley. I've been an appraiser with the city for City of Minneapolis for 15 years. I'm here to present case number 200083, 3043 35th Avenue South, which is located in the Longfellow neighborhood. Our 2020 estimated market value is $422,500. The indicated value on the property is $422,500. Quick overview of the property. I did a desktop review with the owner on April 6th of 2020. It is a 1.7-story single-family home. Sits on a 5,500 square foot lot, 1 block south of East Lake Street and 35th Avenue South. It was built in 1922. It has an above grade square footage of 1,833, has a basement foundation size of 1,126, of which 848 of that is finished. There is a 2-car attached garage. There is a unheated breezeway / mudroom between the house and the garage. The entire house was renovated in 2009, like the owner talked about. And overall, the house is in above average condition. On the main floor, there are 5 rooms total. One of those bedroom is a bedroom. There's a half bath. The kitchen was also redone in 2009. It's a little bit larger, has a center island, and is considered an above average condition. The upper level consists of 2 bedrooms. There are 2 bathrooms. One is a full bath, one is a 3/4 bath. In the basement, there are 2 finished rooms. One is a den office area, and then there's a general family room area. There is also a 3/4 bath in the basement, and then the unfinished utility and laundry rooms as well. The exterior of the property is primarily stucco. There are asphalt shingles and a concrete driveway. The 3 comparables I'm going to present today, all 3 comparables are within a half mile of the subject home. All the comparables are more than a 1.5 story, but less than a full 2-story home, similar to the subject. And all comparables have similar influences of the subject neighborhood. Comparable number 1, 3234 42nd Avenue South, sold for $430,000 in July of 2019. It was built in 1910. It was recently renovated. It has an inferior GLA. It has a superior condition and a superior kitchen, but it has no basement finish, and at the time of sale, 1 less garage stall. Comparable number 2, 3217 31st Avenue South, sold for $409,949 in May of 2019. It was built in 1908. It has similar GLA as our subject home. It is in a similar condition, has a similar kitchen. It does have 1 fireplace, has no basement finish. It is the most comparable home to our subject. Comparable number 3 is 2832 38th Avenue South, sold for $375,000 in October of 2019. It was built in 1950. It has a slightly inferior GLA. It is a similar condition, has an inferior kitchen, has no basement finish. In summary, the adjusted sale price range of the 3 comparables is $420,000 to $450,000, which supports the indicated value of $422,500. Thank you. Any questions?
Okay, is there any discussion or questions from the board? Tinker.
Mr. Stanley, could you address the concerns regarding discrepancy in building size that the property owner mentioned?
Certainly. We had a discussion in regards to the property. So he's saying 2,700 square feet, whereas what we're saying is 1,800 square feet above grade and 800 square feet below grade. And so a lot of times when we start comparing houses, if you go on, let's say you go on Zillow or get a listing from an MLS, it'll say finished square footage, where it doesn't say above grade square footage, below grade square footage. So a lot of times I get people that will call and say, you're saying 2,700 square feet. What we're saying is it's 1,800 square feet above grade and 850 below grade. And we're comparing above grades against above grades versus total finished square footage. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, did you do a remeasure? I believe there was a discrepancy, however, on the physical measurements. Did you do a remeasure using the software you have when you raised these concerns?
I did not. However, I inspected the house 10 years ago when the property owner purchased the house, and I measured the home at that point in time. And so I believe the measurements are accurate.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. Are there any other questions from the board? Havoc.
Yes, I brought up the old MLS, and there is definitely a separation of above ground and below ground, and it's not coming up to eat any of your numbers. When you measured it, when he purchased it, was it in fact a duplex then before it was a single family?
No, at the time that I was there for the sale of the single family. So it was already a single family when I measured it. And it is not uncommon for us to come up with different measurements than what is on the MLS. That's why we measure every home we enter.
That I agree to, but 600 square feet above ground is quite a discrepancy. I guess that if this was a conversation, there maybe it could have been a remeasure. So that was my only concern.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from board members? Thank you. We'll move on to the next case. Thank you for your time, Mr. Ullman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. Item number 5, 305 Cedar Avenue South. I'll ask the clerk to identify the speaker in the queue for the appeal related to 305 Cedar Avenue South.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. The applicant is in the queue, and could you please give the summary statement to Mr. Rodney Johnson, the applicant?
Mr. Johnson, you'll be given 5 minutes to present your appeal. When your case is called, you need to press *6 on your phone to activate your microphone. We ask that you state your name and address for the record and then present your appeal to the board. Next, we will call on the assessor staff, and they will be given 5 minutes to present their report to the board. Finally, the board will have 5 minutes for questions on the case, and the board will consider and take actions on the cases heard at the end of each meeting day. Property owners will be notified of the decision by mail after the board has adjourned. Please identify yourself and the property and go ahead with your appeal, Mr. Johnson. Palmquist?
Chair Anderson, just for clarification, the property owner Rodney Johnson does have 3 cases before you this morning, and we would recommend that you hear them each individually. So we will hear case 209, answer questions on that, and move to 210 and then to 211.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, please press *6 to unmute your phone and then state your name and address for the record and proceed with your comments for 317 Cedar Avenue South.
Hello, this is Rod Johnson.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I had asked for an hour to go over my reasons why our property values for the Midwest Mountaineering buildings should go down 30%, but I was given 5 minutes for each property address, and each property address is exactly the same. So what I would like to do is combine the 3 5 minutes into 15 minutes so I can have time to go over all the reasons, all 7 reasons why the property should be reduced in value. Is that okay if I given 15 minutes altogether?
Rebecca, can you answer that question?
Chair Anderson, whatever the pleasure of the board, if you would prefer that Mr. Johnson speaks for 15 minutes in all 3 cases, that is fine. Our appraiser will present his succinctly as separate cases, however, not combining them all.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Johnson. You have 15 minutes to present your case for the 3 properties in question.
Oh, thank you very much. I had asked the assessor to share his comparable addresses and rent levels, like I had shared my information with him, but he refused. So also I wanted to question him about his figures, but I was refused the right to do that. So what I'm going to do is the next best thing. I'm going to make an educated guess about the comparables he's going to use, and I'm going to make an educated guess about the rent levels that he's going to use, and I'm going to tell you why his figures will be inaccurate.
Thank you.
What I would like to do is start with the comparables. I am guessing, will give you comparables in other neighborhoods. And the Cedar Riverside neighborhood is unique. It's not unlike any other neighborhood, and you can't compare it to any other neighborhood, so I would ask that you do not do this. I am also going to guess that he will compare the Midwest Mountaineering retail property to like bars or restaurants or other properties that has a higher value. The retail right now, especially in Minneapolis, is really suffering right now. And also because the retail levels are suffering, especially with coronavirus, it's going to be really hard to rent out retail floor space, and property values will go down because of this. Do you have a list of my 7 reasons why the property value should be reduced 30%?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Number 1 reason, the Cedar Riverside neighborhood has shown considerable decline in recent years, causing the only comparable 305-311 Cedar Avenue to be sold in 2018, which was the depth of field building. My friend Glenn Folland used to own that for less than the estimated market value. So our appraiser is trying to raise our market value, but actually things are selling. The only comparable, it's a 2-story brick building with retail on the first level. That is the only comparable, and that sold for considerably less. And then since then, I looked and saw that the assessor's market value was 30% less. It went down in value from $1,144,000 to $822,500. And the reason it's gone down in value, at least my guess is the reason, is that this is a unique neighborhood, mostly Somalian. The Twin Cities has the largest population in the world, Somalian population in the world outside of Somalia. And our customers and our employees are afraid to come in this area due to its reputation for high crime. And I sent some photos. Do you have some photos there of what the area looks like right now?
Yes, we received those.
Okay. When I moved Midwest Mountaineering to the area 44 years ago in 1976, it was really a cool boutique retail area with stores like Depth of Field, Lowell and Dean Jewelry, John Kleiner Pottery, Global Village, Electric Fetus, and some of the best cafes like Breakfast at Mama's, Annie's Parlor, and Mama Rose's. In their place, it looks very bad now, and it is no longer a district that our customers want to go to. And the point E I had was you can't compare it at all to bars and restaurants. It's a whole different business. Mm-hmm. My reason number 2 is one of the main reasons Midwest Mountaineering sales have declined from $6 million with 100 employees in 2011 to $4,700,000 with only 65 employees right now or last year in 2019. And it's because it's really hard to get people to come to our area is one of the main reasons. The only way for Midwest Mountaineering to survive when we have reduced sales like this is to reduce expenses. And property taxes is one of them. Midwest Mountaineering is an anchor to the environment here, and if Midwest Mountaineering goes out of business, property values will decline even further. My reason number 3 is our sales at Midwest Mountaineering because of the coronavirus are probably 10% of what they were last year. We're doing some curbside, and it looks like we're going to be able to open for a few days a week But I still think that our sales are going to be down at least 40% for the rest of the year. And to increase our property taxes, when at this time, because the value for the property is supposed to be what the value is worth right now, not some speculative value of what it's going to be worth 2 years from now. So I'm saying because of the coronavirus, I would guess, I think there's a real estate agent among you that the commercial retail property market right now is zero. My reason number 4 is the high crime. Our chief financial person refuses to park in the lot across Cedar Avenue because she's afraid for her safety. We have to escort female area employees to their cars after dark, and we don't encourage people to use the blue LRT station 3 blocks away because they have to walk through the neighborhood to get there. The safety officer, Carla Nielsen, sent some emails. I don't know if they got forwarded to you or not. I did send them to the board on March 26th and April 21st of the high crime in the area. My reason number 5 is loss of parking. You've probably heard something about this African mall the city is going to build across the street from Midwest Mountaineering in a parking lot we now use for employee and business use. So we're going to lose that parking. And this African mall is unanimously opposed by all the businesses. When the mayor and our council member, Abdi Warsami, were going to have an information session, they were booed out of the neighborhood and they had to leave without even presenting. This is a very unpopular thing, but the city is going to do it. And we're going to lose the parking. And without good customer parking, the businesses are worth less. And they're going to have a harder time staying in business. My reason number 6 is the Minneapolis $15 an hour minimum wage, along with required sick time for part-time people, higher sales tax, and higher property taxes, has significantly increased our expenses. And as well as all the other, retail businesses in Minneapolis, in the city of Minneapolis, are suffering the same thing. And it's going to be really hard for us to survive. If it's hard for retail stores to survive, the property is going to rent for less and it's going to be worth less. And reason number 7, Midwest Mountaineering has been in the Cedar Riverside neighborhood since 1976. That's 44 years, and I know the neighborhood intimately. Being intimately involved for 44 years running a business, and also many years living above Midwest Mountaineering. The assessor, David Casperson, has only been working in the neighborhood for a few months, and he doesn't know it nearly as well as I do. And that is my presentation. Thank you for giving me the time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Now I'll call on this assessor's office staff to present their portion for, we'll start with case number 20-0209. Rebecca?
Chair Anderson, David Casperson, Assessor 2 in our office, will be presenting this case for you this morning.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Casperson.
Good morning, Chairman Anderson and members of the board. My name is David Casperson, Commercial Appraiser for the Minneapolis Assessor's Office. I will be presenting case number 20-0209, 305 Cedar Avenue South. For 2020, our assessed value is $506,000. This report indicates a value of $490,000. This property is one of 3 contiguous properties under appeal by the owner. The other 2 properties are 309 Cedar and 317 Cedar, case numbers 20-0210 and 20-0211, respectively. All 3 properties can be seen on the aerial photo on page 2 of the report.
Mr. Casperson,
yes.
Would you please turn on your camera, please?
Camera. Can you see me?
Not yet.
I'm not sure what the issue is with the camera.
Okay, just go ahead.
Can you see me now?
Not yet, no.
Okay. It's showing me that the camera is on, so I'm not sure.
Okay, go ahead with your report, please.
Sorry about that. A desktop review of the property was completed on April 15th. An interior inspection of the property was completed in June of 2019 by another appraiser in our office. 305 Cedar is a mixed-use property. The two-story building has retail use in the main floor and basement, and residential apartments on the second floor. The building was built in 1901 and has a sidewalk fronting neighborhood retail style. The lot is irregularly shaped, with the paved rear portions of the lot used for parking and outdoor storage. On page 3, there are front and rear exterior photos, street views along Cedar Avenue, and basement photos. Page 4 has photos of the ground floor and second floor. These photos were on file from the previous inspection of June of 2019. The interior of some of the apartments was inspected, but those photos are not included for privacy. Pages 5 and 6 includes a sales comparison grid and map. A search was made for sales of mixed-use properties, and these 5 were selected for comparability. The sales are of a similar age to the subject. Also, all comparable sales have a similar style, with ground-level retail and upper-level apartments. Adjustments were made for market condition, building age and condition, building size, and lot size and parking. Using these adjusted sales, a value per square foot is derived for both the above ground area and the gross building area. The value indicated by the sales comparison approach is $495,000. The income approach can be found on page 7. Market assumptions for the income approach were derived from market data. Because this is a mixed-use property, and because retail and apartment properties face different market assumptions, 2 parallel analyses were completed for the commercial and apartment portions of the building. The indicated values are added back together at the bottom of the analysis to reach an indicated value of $489,000. The reconciliation of values can be found on page 8. The sales comparison approach indicated a value of $495,000, and the income approach indicated $489,000. The sales comparison approach does lend support to the final indicated value, but is given slightly less weight due to the comparable sales available. The original assessed value for 2020 is $506,000. The reconciliation of the sales comparison approach and income approach for this report indicates a value of $490,000. This concludes my presentation for 305 Cedar. Are there any questions?
Do any of the board members have any questions? Tinker.
Yeah, these are some general questions that might apply to all 3 properties, but if they don't, just mention that. Did you do a neighborhood survey in terms of looking to see how many properties appeared vacant in the neighborhood, commercial properties?
Search of vacancy. Not an individual survey of this neighborhood. We did we provided an income approach, an estimate of the vacancy rate based on the market data for this neighborhood. As far as a survey for the purposes of this report, no.
Okay. Do you think is 15% usually what you use?
15% would be we feel that 15% is appropriate for this property in this report. As far as other parts of the city, I would say that we would be using a lower vacancy rate than that.
Okay. What about cap rate data? Was that based on data, or did you do a band of investment, or how did you derive your cap rate from comparables?
We maintain market data ourselves for properties that sell, and the cap rate for this report was derived both from the market data that we collect as well as market reports. Yes.
Also, same with the retail rents. Do you have secured rents from the neighborhood, or was that just general published data?
We have both.
Okay.
We survey rent for the neighborhood. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Board Member Havoc.
Yes. From this, are you taking into consideration, when you talk about the income approach, are you taking into consideration that the income on this property is dropping because of sales, security, and loss of parking? How are you weighting this, income approach or sales data? Which is your heaviest weight?
The heaviest weight is provided to the income approach in the final reconciliation. Can you clarify your question about the sales data?
Well, the sales data, when I look at the pictures, I look at the boarded up buildings. I know the neighborhood is quite well, and their properties are being boarded up. They're going out of business. They're selling for less than value, and now I own retail buildings as well, and now they're vacant. So I guess that I'm wondering if you're taking into consideration that they're closed and they're just hanging on. Why your income approach is pushing this value.
The data that we have available for sales were included. Because the sales available are spread around the city, we felt that they did provide some support. However, in this case, we thought that I feel that the income approach provides slightly more credible opinion of value. And yes, it is. I'm sorry, it does consider
when the income approach is going down 30% and then you're raising it, how does that factor in your data?
Can you clarify what you mean by the 30%?
The income approach on the retail store that you're trying to raise the property value of and the taxes. His business is going down and his income approach is going down and your income approach is going up. So I guess that it's hard for me to understand how you would have boarded up buildings in a very small area and going out into the city around. He's talking about the light rail station down to where they're going to put in and take away his parking lot. I think going out of that area is unfair to this property owner, and using an income approach when his income is going down is not correct. So those are just some comments.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Reed.
Yeah, I had a question for Mr. Johnson. You mentioned early on that you had you believed one comp for in the area. Could you talk a little bit about that comparable, please?
Yes, am I on mute now?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. That is one block down. It's on Cedar Avenue. The building is 405-411 Cedar Avenue South. It was owned for probably 45 or 50 years by my friend Glenn Falland, who operated Depth of Field. And it just got to be too much for him to keep in business. It was, his sales weren't good. So he went and sold for less than the appraised market value in 2018. I believe it was November 2018. Since then, the property value, if I looked up the city records, has been assessed for 30% less. It's gone down from the assessed value was $1,144,000, and it's been lowered to $822,500. And since I'm very familiar with this building, Depth of Field was a yarn fabric type store. Then they also sold some futon furniture at one time. If you have any questions for me about the building, I'm very familiar with the building. John Coiner used to have his pottery shop in the basement back 30 years ago. Are there any specific questions about that property at 405-411 Cedar? It's like a two-story brick building, just like Midwest Mountaineering.
No, that helps. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, next question from Board Member Bland.
Mr. Johnson, what is the state of the depth of field building right now?
I think there may be some vacancies in it. There's a little East African cafe in it, and there's some little Somalian businesses in it. I'm not sure. I think there may be some vacancies in there too.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from board members? With no other questions, we'll consider the case at the end of the day, and you'll be notified in writing, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a break in the order here, so we'll jump to item number 12, 2633 Pillsbury Avenue, case number 20-0617. I'll ask the clerk to identify the speaker in the queue for the appeal related to 2633 Pillsbury.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the applicant is in the queue. I can let him know that, I can let the applicant know that they will be given 5 minutes to present their appeal. We would ask them to state their name and address for the record, and then we'll call on the assessor staff. They will be given 5 minutes to present, and then finally the board will have questions and answers. So I'd ask the applicant to press *6 to unmute, state your name and address for the record, and then proceed with your comments.
Hello.
Hello. We're here.
Okay, thank you much.
Press *6. Take a look to see if they're reversed.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Willie, and identify yourself and the property, and you'll have 5 minutes to present your appeal, and we'll look at the cases at the end of the day after both parties have spoken for 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you. All right, thank you much. Thanks for making time. So I sent materials to you. I believe you have them in front of you in a PDF format and in an Excel spreadsheet. What I did is I took the traditional approaches to valuation and looked at the property from an income approach, a cost basis approach, comparables, and I took the average of the three, because you can make pros and cons arguments against each approach. So I, in my analysis, came up with $598,000. I would note that each of the analysis came up with something less than was otherwise recommended. But we'll go from here. We'll start out looking at the analysis that I did for the income approach. On page 2, do you guys have a copy of page 2? Yes. Make sure you have everything. Okay, thank you much. I took my actual financials from 2019, and brought in my costs of doing, of operations on the project, and or on the fourplex, and then I took that and I, made adjustments as it would be related to sort of a traditional pro forma, which, would make assumptions for vacancy, et cetera. So I really, if you look at column A, it's the 2019 actual, you can see at bottom line is, $72,000 worth of income, expenses at $26K. That does not include interest expense or debt service. I cap it at 7%, which I understand is a relatively, what I've been told is that that's spot on, that if you can sell a property, an income property like this for 7% cap, you should take it. And so that's what I did. Brought in vacancy on the second column, and that's really the only difference because all the other expenditures are essentially within range. I was told that between vacancy and repair and maintenance, between the two, you should be at about 10%. So I made a tweak there to taking my repairs and maintenance up to $3,600. Cap that at 7%, and you get, $591, and that carries through to the first page that you saw. Any questions, you guys?
Not at the present. Are you finished with your presentation, or?
Oh, no. And then the third page is a cost basis. You can see what we bought the property for, how much we put into it on page 3. Between the two, you get to 570, and that carries through to the first page as well. Then here you can see the fourth page. You can see the properties that it's not the proper pronoun is not I. In order to make sure I was doing this accurately, I asked for some help from a broker. I paid him some consulting fees to help me with this, just because I'm not a professional at this, so I needed some help. And so I got some comparables of other properties within the same geography and put this together. He pointed out that the 3208 Blaisdell, in his mind, is the closest property in terms of its, location and all that's the most close to our property. So you can see the average or the total valuation that would be implied out of this. Columns K and L. K is converting all of the other comparable properties to a price per square foot. L is a comparison converting all the other properties to a price per unit, and then extrapolating the same for our property. And there are merits to both approach, so I just took the average of the two. If you convert all the properties to a price per square foot, the average value then would turn out to be $605K. If you bring in the averages on a price per unit at $658, the average of the two is $632. Just wanting to respect that both of them have merits. Then the final page takes a look at the comparables that were offered by Leo and his team, and I just wanted to be responsive to those comparables and articulate how they might not line up very well in terms of a true comparable. Broadly speaking, the comparables were a lot closer to the lakes. Let's just say that. I mean, that's the biggest comparable. If you skew the geography or look at the geography and how they're weighted, they're just in a nicer neighborhood.
Mr. Willie, wrap things up, please.
Go ahead, please. Okay, I'm done. That's it. I mean, everything else is good. Yep, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Are there any, now we'll hear from the assessor's office staff to present their case to the board.
Chair Anderson, this morning we have Leo Montez, Assessor 2, presenting this case.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Montez.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Leo Montes. I am a commercial appraiser with the city of Minneapolis. I specialize in appraising apartment properties, and I have been the appraiser for Southwest Minneapolis for over 10 years, including the Whittier neighborhood where the subject is located. The subject address is 2633 Pillsbury Avenue, and this is case number 20-0617. The subject is a fourplex. It is a two-story structure with a brick exterior, built in 1913, and is typical for the area. There are 2 units per floor. Each unit has a front and a rear entrance, and each unit has a den, a living room, dining area, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a bathroom. The units have hardwood floorings and mostly original wood trimming throughout the units. According to public records, in 2016, the subject was remodeled with an estimated cost of $175,000. I inspected the interior of the property during the remodeling in 2016. On May 5th of this year, I completed a desktop value review of the subject that includes the sales approach and the income approach to value. Page 3 in the report shows the 4 comparable sales utilized in this analysis. All comparables are similar to the subject in several characteristics. There are 4 unit buildings. They have a similar age, and they are located near the subject and sold prior to the assessment date. Sale number 1 is considered best comparable. It has all 2 bedrooms units of similar condition and sold for approximately $184,000 per unit. Cell number 2 has superior location, being 1 block west of Lindale Avenue. It has 3 one-bedrooms and 1 two-bedroom unit. It is sold for $187,500 per unit. Cell 3 is less upgraded and has design flaws in the units. It's sold for approximately $164,000 per unit. And cell number 4 have overall inferior quality finishes and features at time of sale. Heated porches were being used as 3rd bedrooms. It was operated as a subsidized housing. One of the units was rehabbed prior to the sale. This comparable is also located on a traffic intersection that rears to commercial uses east of Nicollet Avenue, and is sold for $165,000 per unit. Adjustments were made to the comparable sales prices to compensate for the differences to the subject. After the adjustments, the analysis indicates prices per unit ranging from $172,500 to $186,400, with an approximate average price per unit of $180,000, indicating an estimated market value for the subject of $720,000. On page 4 in the report, it shows the income approach to value. It includes estimated market rents, market vacancy rate, and market expense ratio to arrive to a net operating income, which when divided by a market indicated capitalization rate gives us an estimated market value of $700,000. Reconciling both approaches to value, the income and the sales approach, gives us an estimate of market value for the subject property of $710,000, which supports the current assessment of $694,500. So in conclusion, I estimate the market value for the subject property as of January 2nd of this year to be $710,000, and that is my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montez. Are there any questions from the board for either Assessor Montez or from Mr. Willie? Well, with no questions, we'll look at the end of the business day. We'll look at the case and make a decision. And The property owner will be notified in writing by the board. Thank you. Ms. Malmquist, can you let me know if we should go back and review Mr. Casperson to over the 2 cases or go on to the next?
Chair Anderson, since you do have case number 20-0013, the Griffiths on James Avenue, I would recommend that since they are in the lobby and available, that we hear their case first and then we can go back.
Okay, thank you. I'll have the clerk identify the next caller.
Yes, Mr. Chair, as Ms. Malmquist said, Clark and Seema Griffith, the applicants, are now in the queue, and perhaps you would like to advise them as to the procedure that the board will use.
Okay, we will call on the Griffiths they will be given 5 minutes to present their appeal. When your case is called, you'll need to press *6 on your phone to activate your microphone. And we ask that you state your name and address for the record and then present your appeal to the board. Next, we will call on the assessor staff and they'll be given 5 minutes to present their report to the board. And finally, the board will have 5 minutes for questions on the case, and the board will consider and take action on the cases heard at the end of each meeting day, and property owners will be notified of the decision by mail after the board is adjourned. Go ahead, Mr. and Ms. Griffith.
Yes, we're here. Did you say we needed to press star key?
We can hear you now, so you're live and good.
Okay, well, first of all, thanks for listening to our appeal. There are 3 reasons we are making this appeal. The first and most important reason is we refinanced our house with U.S. Bank, and they sent an appraiser to our house in November of 2019. The appraiser toured every room of our house, and he came up with a valuation of $1.2 million. And I included that appraisal report in my appeal application. So I'm assuming you have that appraisal.
We have it. Thank you.
Okay. The second reason we are appealing is the appraiser who, Connie, who did not have the opportunity to tour our house, as did U.S. Bank's appraiser. So she was at a disadvantage because of the pandemic. So I don't fault her for that. She listed some comparables, and the majority of the comparables that she listed were from 2018. And the 1 or 2 that she listed from 2019, I happen to be familiar with because I've been in some of those homes, and they have brand new kitchens and brand new bathrooms. As I pointed out in my communication with her, our kitchen is 27 years old. Our first floor bathroom is 45 years old, and we have a carriage house, which was pictured in that appraisal, which is crumbling. So I have friends in the real estate business. One of my best friends who I walk with regularly is a realtor, and buyers are looking for houses that are ready to move into, that don't have 27-year-old kitchens and 45-year-old bathrooms. The market value of Lowry Hill homes is dropping. That is my last point. I am staring at a report from Lakes Area Realty about the residential housing market, and it is ugly, especially in Lowry Hill. Sales are down significantly and prices are down dramatically. And this is the reason for our appeal. Number 1, the U.S. Bank appraisal, where the gentleman toured our house. Number two, the fact that we have a 27-year-old kitchen and a 45-year-old bathroom. And number three, the values that were cited to us by Connie were for 2018 transactions, homes that had been recently renovated and were in much better shape than ours. And in 18 happened to be a rising market, as my husband just pointed out. The market is deteriorating and will deteriorate further. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Griffith. I'll now call on the assessor's office to present their report to the board.
Chair Anderson, this morning we have Connie Ferguson, Assessor 2 in our office, presenting this case for you.
Ms. Frith, go ahead.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. My name is Connie Ferguson. I've been appraising for a total of 18 years and have been with the City of Minneapolis for 4.5 years. This case is number 20-0013, located on 1786 James Avenue South in the Lowry Hill neighborhood. The 2020 estimated market value is $1,225,000, and the indicated value in this report is $1,225,000. I had conducted a desktop review of the property on April 13th, 2020. In addition, another staff member did an interior inspection last year, March 22nd, 2019, for an appeal. Since last year, the subject has completely renovated their third floor with a new kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, and living space, and remodeled the master bath on the second floor, along with some miscellaneous exterior repairs. A permit for this work was pulled with an estimated value of $190,000. The subject is a 2.5-story all brick home with 4,708 square feet above grade, with 6 bedrooms and 4.5 baths. The kitchen was remodeled in 1993 with stained wood cabinets, granite counters, stainless steel appliances, and center island. As mentioned above, the newly remodeled third floor can be used as a secondary living space. The basement is finished with a family room, wine cellar, bedroom, and bathroom, and there's an open front porch. Since there have been no recent renovations except for the third floor and second floor master bath, the overall condition of the home is considered average. Comparable one on 1942 Avenue South sold for $1,232,200. Although this comparable is 500 square feet above grade larger than the subject, it is similar to the subject with an all brick exterior, a kitchen remodeled in 1985. It has a similar lot size. The third floor is finished with 2 bedrooms and a bath, but there is no kitchen, and the basement is unfinished. Comparable 2 at 1716 Humboldt Avenue South sold for $1,135,000. This comparable is similar to the subject with no recent updates, but it has 800 square feet above grade, smaller than the subject. The kitchen was remodeled in 1999. It has an open front porch. The basement is finished with the family room, exercise room, and bath. And the third floor is finished, but is just an open finished space with no kitchen or bathroom. Comparable 3 at 1930 Irving Avenue South sold for $1,103,480. This comparable is 2 blocks away from the subject with no recent updates. The kitchen was updated in 2005 with painted existing cabinets and new granite counters, but is still somewhat outdated. The lower level is finished with a family room, den, exercise room, and half bath. It is inferior to the subject because the exterior is wood versus brick. There isn't a front porch. It is 700 square feet above grade, smaller than the subject. The third floor is finished, but is just an open finished space with no kitchen or bathroom. And per the realtor, the property has been on and off the market for 12 years. In addition, there was some deferred maintenance, such as original windows, and the wood exterior needs painting. All three comparable sales selected were within 3 blocks of the subject and were similar in quality and condition. Although they were similar, none of the comparables' finished third floors could be used as a secondary living space like the subjects. Considering the work that was done to the home in 2019, the 2020 estimated market value was $1,275,000. After completing my desk review and analyzing the comparable sales, and with the adjusted value ranges of $1,115,000 to $1,240,000, the estimated market value was lowered to $1,225,000. Therefore, the indicated value in this report is $1,225,000. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Ferguson. Are there any questions from the board members regarding this property?
Do I have the opportunity to respond to a few of the items that Connie mentioned?
I'll give you 2 minutes to respond.
She mentioned that we remodeled our master bathroom. Our master bathroom is the size of a closet. There is no room for a bathtub. It's a shower, a toilet, and 2 sinks. It was 30 years old, so we retiled it, put in a shower and a high efficiency toilet. She mentioned the 3rd floor living space that hadn't been touched in 50 years. We do not rent it out. We do not receive any rental income from it. That bathroom was 50 years old. So we put in a high efficiency toilet, new tile work, new cabinetry, and there is a kitchenette from IKEA because we were looking to save money. The majority of the renovation money was spent to repair the crumbling masonry at the front entry of our house. That cost us $40,000 because it was unsafe under the arch. We also had the highest heating bill in the neighborhood. I would get letters every month. So we put foam insulation in the 3rd floor for $14,000. So I just want to clarify that we don't have any of these giant luxury master bathrooms that are in so many of these homes, and we are not renting out the 3rd floor. It was necessary work.
Thank you, Ms. Griffith. Are there any other questions from board members? With no other questions, we'll move on to the next case.
So I can hang up?
Yes, you may. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Rebecca, should we go back to the properties on Cedar?
Chair Anderson, yes, I think it's appropriate to go back to case number 20-0210, which is where David had left off with his presentation. He will require just under 10 minutes to present 210 and 211. Okay,
we will hear item number 6309, Cedar Avenue South, case number 20-0210. We have heard from Mr. Johnson earlier. I will now call on the assessor's office staff to present their report. Mr. Casperson.
Chairman Anderson and members of the board, I did leave the room and come back in, so hopefully everyone can see me now.
Yeah, we can.
Good. My name is David Casperson. I'll now be presenting case number 20-0210, 309 Cedar Avenue South. For 2020, our assessed value is $869,000. This report indicates a value of $930,000. This is the second of 3 contiguous properties under appeal by the owner that I will be presenting today. A desktop review of the property was completed on April 15th. An interior inspection of the property was completed in June of 2019 by another appraiser in our office. 309 Cedar is a commercial property. The building was built in 1901 and has retail use throughout. This is a two-story building with a sidewalk fronting neighborhood style. The lot is L-shaped and the building covers most of the lot. Page 2 includes an aerial photo. Page 3 includes exterior photos of the property and street views. Page 4 includes photos of the basement and ground level. The photos on pages 3 and 4 were taken in June of 2019. Pages 5 and 6 include the sales comparison approach. Sales of comparable retail properties were selected. Most of the sales are of a similar age to the property, with the exception of sale number 2. These are multi-story buildings similar to the subject. Adjustments were made for condition, building size, lot size, and parking. Using these adjusted sales, a value per square foot is derived for both the above ground area and the gross building area. The value indicated by the sales comparison approach is $940,000. The income approach can be found on page 7. Market assumptions for the income approach were derived from market data. The indicated value by the income approach is $921,000. The reconciliation of values can be found on page 8. The sales comparison approach indicated a value of $940,000, and the income approach indicated $921,000. Our assessed value for 2020 is $869,000. The reconciliation of the sales comparison approach and the income approach in this report provides an indicated value of $930,000. This concludes my presentation for 309 Cedar. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Casperson. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, we will ask Mr. Casperson to continue on to item number 7, 317 Cedar Avenue South, case number 20-0211. Go ahead.
Chairman Anderson and members of the board, I will now present case number 20-0211, 317 Cedar Avenue South. For 2020, our assessed value is $498,000. This report indicates a value of $420,000. This is the last of 3 contiguous properties under appeal by the owner that I will be presenting today. 317 Cedar is a commercial property. The building was built in 1901 and has retail use throughout. There are some offices on the second floor which support the retail operations in the rest of the 3 buildings. This is a 2-story building with a sidewalk fronting neighborhood style. The building covers most of the lot, which is rectangular. Page 2 includes an aerial photo. Page 3, there are front and rear exterior photos, street views along Cedar Avenue, and basement photos. Page 4 has photos of the ground floor and second floor. The photos on pages 3 and 4 were also taken in June of 2019. Pages 5 and 6 include the sales comparison approach. Sales of comparable retail properties were selected. Most of the sales are of a similar age to the property, with the exception of sale number 2. These are multi-story buildings similar to the subject. Adjustments were made for condition, building size, and lot size and parking. Using these adjusted sales, a value per square foot is derived for both the above ground area and the gross building area. The value indicated by the sales comparison approach is $415,000. The income approach can be found on page 7. Market assumptions for the income approach were derived from market data. The indicated value by the income approach is $427,000. The reconciliation of values can be found on page 8. The sales comparison approach indicated a value of $415,000. The income approach indicated $427,000. Our assessed value for 2020 is $498,000. The reconciliation of the sales comparison approach and the income approach in this report provides an indicated value of $420,000. This concludes my presentation for 317 Cedar. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Casperson. Board members, Board Member Tinker.
So just to clarify on this, on 2 of the 3 properties, you've agreed to lower your value, is that correct? or I should say your appraisal came in lower than the assessed value. 305 Cedar went to 506 to 490, and 317 Cedar went from 498 to 420. Is that correct?
Chairman Anderson, Member Tinker, that is correct. The indicated values by these reports are lower for those two properties than the assessed value.
So you have consented to a decline, essentially.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next case. I'll ask the clerk to identify the speaker in the queue for the appeal related to 346 36th Street East, number 346.
Mr. Chair, the next applicant, Nicole Shepard, is in the queue. Nicole, are you able to hear us and speak to the board?
Yep, I'm here. Good morning.
Okay, morning, we can hear you. And you will be given 5 minutes to present your appeal. We ask that you state your name and address for the record and then present your appeal to the board. Next, we'll call on the assessor staff and they will be given 5 minutes to present their report to the board. And finally, the board will have 5 minutes for questions in the case. The board will consider and take action on the cases heard at the end of each meeting day, and property owners will be notified of the decision by mail after the board has adjourned. Go ahead, Ms. Shepard.
Okay, so I reside at 346 East 36th Street, Minneapolis 55408. The reason why I'm appealing today is because the estimated market value on my home for 2021 seemed much higher than it should be. I was erroneously assessed a new home improvement value of $25,000 that added to the estimated $42,500 increase in the EMV. I have made no improvements to my home since I bought it, and this would result in a 37% increase on the EMV versus what would be about a 15% increase without this error added. I provided to the board, which you should have in front of you, a letter showing different properties. So I live in it's like a townhouse association, but it's considered condos, with similar properties, including their 2020 assessments. I also received and provided you a letter from my property management company, which confirms that I did not make these improvements and that they belong to basically a neighbor who's on the other end of the 4-unit building that my home is a part of. And then I also printed out and provided copies of the EMVs for similar homes in the same association, demonstrating that the assessed values for 2021 are anywhere between $16,000 and $24,000 less than my home. I bought my home in April 2017. I spoke with John Ullman from the Office of City Assessor to assess my property home value via phone, including a review of photos from the sale of the property a month earlier, and was deemed, that was what was necessary and that was thorough. In late November of 2018, I did receive a letter to review the property due to a building permit for work on the property from a Brian Messer. I called him back on December 9th, 2018, and left him a message explaining that I had not pulled any permit for any work, and that it may belong to my neighbor who I saw was adding egress windows. I believe I received a return voicemail. I don't have it saved, confirming that yes, that was for the other property. In early April of this year, I received the 2021 valuation notice and saw this $25,000 new home improvement value listed. I promptly contacted the assessor's office via email and received a confirmation from Matt By with the assessor's office that the new home value was mistakenly applied to my home. And then I was instructed to complete the application online to, quote, fix the problem. However, through that process, I was told that even though that was a mistake, that the assessment was accurate. Again, I've provided with you the assessed, the AMBs for similar properties in my same housing association, which the assessor had provided like recent sales data over the last couple of years to explain his assessment value. The property at 352 East 36th Street, which pulled the permit and is doing significant work on their property. That's the one property I did not include in the information I sent to you all. But I just looked up and can see that the assessed value for that property is $146,970, which is still about $11,000 less than mine. My property, compared to some of the others that I've provided, is next to the alley, next to a bunch of very rundown houses and a very busy apartment building. I have people who walk through my yard constantly. I have trash that blows over from all the dumpsters. These other properties are in better lots. However, as I mentioned, their assessed value is anywhere between $11,000 to $24,000 less than this new EMB. So I'm asking the board to reassess and consider changing and reducing the EMB for next year.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. I will now call on the assessor staff to present their report to the board.
Chair Anderson, Matthew By, Assessor 1 in our office, will be presenting this case to you.
Go ahead, Mr. By.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. My name is Matt By. I've been in the assessing field for 3 years. I am presenting case number 20-0182, which is located at 346 36th Street East in the central neighborhood. The January 2nd, 2020 estimated market value is $157,500. The analysis of the subject indicates a value of $160,000. I interviewed the property owner via telephone and completed a desktop review of this property on April 20th, 2020. The subject is a townhouse-style condominium and faces 36th Street East. The subject is at the southernmost end of the townhouse complex, which fills nearly an entire block and is bounded by 35th Street to the north, Clinton Avenue to the west, and 4th Street to the east. The subject is an end unit and is located next to the alley that runs between Clinton Avenue and 4th Avenue. The subject is a 2-story condominium built in 1985 and has 1,465 square feet above grade. On the first floor, there is a living room, updated kitchen, and dining room with a 3-season porch off of the living room. Upstairs, there are 2 bedrooms and 1 full bathroom. The property was cosmetically refreshed in 2016 prior to the current owner's purchase. There are standard and stock finishes throughout. The basement is 335 square feet, of which 300 square feet is finished. There is 1 finished room in the basement. The 1-stall garage is attached and is accessible from the alley. Overall, the property condition is average. I relied on the sales comparison approach for this analysis of value. A thorough search was made for properties that were a similar design, size, and condition to the subject. In the past years, there have been many sales of similar units in this townhouse complex. These properties are the most similar to the subject due to their style and location. There are very few other properties similar to this complex in the central neighborhood. The 2 most similar comparables are end units with 3 bedrooms and the same square footage as the subject. They have the same layout and similar features. Comparable 1 is one of those end units located at 3548 4th Avenue South and sold for $157,501 in April of 2018. It is the same square footage as the subject. This property does not have any finished basement area. Comparable 2 is at 3534 4th Avenue South and sold for $170,000 in September 2018. It too is an end unit with the same square footage as the subject. However, it is located further back from the street with a superior view. It also has 1 3/4 bath in the basement. Comparable 3 is located at 3521 Clinton Avenue and sold for $144,000 in June of 2019. It is a smaller interior unit with 2 bedrooms, no finished basement, and no fireplace. Comparable 4 is located at 349 35th Street East and sold for $150,350 in August 2018. This property is also an interior unit with no fireplace and smaller square footage. It faces 35th Street, which is very similar to the subject's view. After the adjustments were made on the comparable sales, the values ranged from $159,850 to $166,500. Slightly more weight was given to comparables 1 and 2 due to their similar size and style to the subject. After this analysis, the indicated value was found to be $160,000. Thank you. Any questions?
Hello? Hello?
Beal, you're muted.
Hello?
I'm sorry, are there any questions from any of the board members?
I'm sorry, I cut out and I didn't hear anything after the assessor completed talking. Was there something that I missed?
I'm sorry, I was muted. I was asking the board members if there were any questions for either Ms. Shepard or for the assessor, Mr. Bai.
Thank you.
Seeing none, that will end our phone-in calls for this morning, and we will proceed to the new business of write-in hearings before the board. Board members will be starting with item number 13 of the write-ins, 4816 Penn Avenue South, case number 20BH-0227. Excuse me?
This is still Nicole Shepard. Am I still remaining on the call, or is our case over?
The case is over. We'll we'll discuss all the cases at the end of the day, and you will be notified in writing after the adjournment of the board.
Okay, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, have a good day.
You too. Okay, take a moment for the board members to adjust their files to get to the write-in cases here.
Hey, what does anyone know what page of the packet the write-in is on?
I am not sure. I'm looking for it right now. I do not see 4816 Ken. I'll repeat the case number 20BH-0227. And in my packet, I am not locating it. Do any of the other board members have this file?
Neil, it's at the very end, the very last case in your file.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Chair Anderson, this is Rebecca. It
Yes.
appears that the cases in your packet are in reverse order of the agenda. We apologize for this. I'm not sure what happened, but we typically would do it in case number order, but they were entered in reverse on the agenda. So you would go to the last case in your packet in this case.
Okay, thank you. So the property address 4816 Penn Avenue South, case number 20BH-0227. Is there any discussion or questions by the board?
Okay, I'm confused. Are we discussing this case now?
Yes, it's a writing case, so there will be no presentation from the city assessor or from a homeowner. It's just the write-in information provided, which is, from what I see here, just a 2-page analysis.
Okay. If I may then proceed.
Go ahead.
I suspect that this homeowner's assessment of their square footage is incorrect. That comes up often, and it's often mentioned in these reports from the assessors. And I think any assessor or appraiser that's done this gets frustrated by the square footage in MLS, for example. Too many agents simply put what the previous agent had in there without doing any measuring, and often they don't measure accurately to begin with. So from what I know of that block and that area in trying to assess square footage, I'm pretty sure they miscalculated or accepted a number that is not correct for their square footage. I think they have more square footage than they think they have. I'm very familiar with the house across the street that sold recently practically before it was on the market with more than one offer. I think there were 2 or 3 offers. It had been renovated by the owner, I think for the purpose of selling, and did a very nice job. However, I think it was actually smaller than the subject house. It sold quickly in the high 8s, I believe. So my suggestion would be that we sustain the value of $920 on this property.
Okay, are there any other questions from or comments from board members? If not, I'll call for a motion.
I move that we sustain the value of $920 on the property at 4816 Penn Avenue South.
Is there a second?
Second. Havig, second.
It has been moved by Bland and seconded by Havig to sustain the 2020 estimated market value at $920,000. I'll ask the clerk to call on the roll on the motion.
Board Member Bland.
Aye.
Board Member Havig.
Aye.
Board Member Reed.
Aye.
Board Member Tinker.
Aye.
Chair Anderson.
Aye.
With 5 ayes, the motion passes.
With that, we'll move on to item number 14, 2422 35th Avenue South, case number 20BH-0224. Is there the homeowner Connie Schindler? This 2020 city assessed value is at $525,500. The owner is requesting a reduction to $460,000. Do we have any comments or questions? And again, we just have a two-page summary from the homeowner as to why we should consider that reduction.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I saw no really supporting evidence to lower the value, except for the fact that they'd like to lower the value. So based on that, I would suggest that we maintain the value.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll ask for a motion.
I move that we sustain the value of $525,500 on the property at 2422 35th Avenue South.
Is there a second?
Second that, Karen Reed.
Seconded by Reed. It has been moved by Bland and seconded by Reed to sustain the 2020 estimated market value at $525,500. I will ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion.
Board Member Bland.
Aye.
Board Member Havig.
Aye.
Board Member Reed.
Aye.
Board Member Tinker.
Aye.
Chair Anderson.
Aye.
With 5 ayes, the motion passes.
We'll move on to item 15, 2648 34th Avenue South, case number 20BH-0220. And is there any discussions or questions by the board? The owner is Cedar Kavaznik. The 2020 city assessed market value is at $810,000. It is industrial property, and the property owner has not provided any comparable properties for us to consider or any comments. Without anything to look at, I'll ask for a motion. Bland.
I move we sustain the value of $810,000 at 2648 34th Avenue South.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Havig, second.
It has been moved by Bland and seconded by Havig to sustain the 2020 estimated market value at $810,000. I will ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion.
Board Member Bland.
Aye.
Board Member Havig.
Aye.
Board Member Reed.
Aye.
Board Member Tinker. Board Member Tinker.
Aye.
Chair Anderson.
Aye.
5 ayes, the motion passes.
With the motion passing, we'll move on to item number 16, 5024 Vincent Avenue South, case number 20BH-0218. The property owner is Matthew Nelson. The 2020 city assessed value is $458,000. Is there any discussion by the board or questions by the board? Reviewing it, it was assessed at $436 in 2018, and it was also $458 in 2019. So there's no change from the previous year. Board Member Bland.
A market analysis was provided by the homeowner, which indicated a lower value than the assessed value. Based on that, there were some comps that I thought were not that helpful, but I think based on that, I would propose that we lower the value to $440,000.
Any other board members with comments? With no other comments or questions, I would request a motion.
I move that we adjust the value for 24 Vincent Avenue South from $458,000 to $440,000.
Is there a second?
Tinker, second.
It's been moved by Bland and seconded by Tinker to move to decrease the 2020 estimated market value to $440,000. I will ask the clerk to call a roll on the motion.
Board Member Bland.
Aye.
Board Member Havig.
Aye.
Board Member Reed.
Aye.
Board Member Tinker.
Aye.
Chair Anderson.
Aye.
With 5 ayes, the motion passes.
With that, we'll move on to item number 17, 2653 37th Avenue South, case number 20BH-0217. It is at 2653 37th Avenue South, owned by DPH Properties V LLC. 2020 city assessed market value is $582,500. The homeowner or the property owner has not provided any comps. I believe it is commercial or industrial property, but without any information provided by the property owner, I would call for a motion. Bland.
I propose that we sustain the value of $582,500 at 2653 27th Avenue South.
37th Avenue South.
Oh, sorry, 37th Avenue South.
Is there a second?
I second that. Reed.
It has been moved by Bland and seconded by Reed to sustain the 2020 estimated market value at $582,500. I will ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion.
Board Member Bland.
Aye.
Board Member Havig.
Aye.
Board Member Reed.
Aye.
Board Member Tinker.
Aye.
Chair Anderson.
Aye.
With 5 ayes, the motion passes.
With that passing, we'll move on to item 18, 2657 32nd Avenue South, case number 20BH-0216. This is another property owned by Cedar Kavaznik. 2020 city is assessed market value is $1,302,000. It is industrial, and again, no comps or justification has been provided by the property owner. Would someone like to make a motion?
This is Havig. I'll make a motion to sustain the value for the 2020 of $582,500 for property address 2657 32nd Avenue South.
The current assessed property value of that property is $1,302,000.
Oh, sorry. I would to sustain the value of $1,302,000 for 2657 32nd Avenue South. Sorry.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second that motion. Reed?
So it has been moved by Havig and seconded by Reed to sustain the 2020 estimated market value at $1,302,000. I will ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion.
Board Member Bland.
Aye.
Board Member Havig.
Aye.
Board Member Reed.
Aye.
Board Member Tinker.
Aye.
Chair Anderson.
Aye.
With 5 ayes, the motion passes.
With that, we'll move on to item number 19, 630 7th Street Southeast, case number 20BH-0208. It is, again, 630 7th Street Southeast. Brett Anderson is the owner. 2020 city assessed market value is $428,000. It's a double bungalow. Any discussion or questions from the board? Board Member Bland.
Mr. Chair, looking at the properties that were submitted as comparables, seems to me one of the biggest differences here that can be a real detriment to a property there, that there's no garage or no off-street parking, and all the others do have that. Excuse me. So that is a considerable detriment in that area. The comparables totaled to about $372,008. That is, however, a very popular area, being housing for U of M students. I think I would propose that we lower the value to $410,000.
Is there any other discussion from other board members?
Havig, I agree with Faye that that not having a garage or parking is a huge detriment. So I agree with a reduction.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Bland?
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Please do.
My motion is that we reduce the value of the property at 630 7th Street Southeast from $428,000 to $410,000. What did I say? 20,000?
$410,000.
410. Yeah. Thank you.
Is there a second on that?
Havig, second.
It has been moved by Bland and seconded by Havig to decrease the 2020 estimated market value to $410,000. I will ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion.
Board Member Bland.
Aye.
Board Member Havig.
Aye.
Board Member Reed.
Aye.
Board Member Tinker.
Aye.
Chair Anderson.
Aye.
5 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 20, 4936 Xerxes Avenue South, case number 20BH-0202. It is owned, the applicant is Robert McPherson. The 2020 city assessed market value is $373,000. Are there any comments or discussion by the board? Board Member Bland.
The homeowner's main argument here was that they're next door to a retail establishment that has a lot of traffic. I know that it would be a detriment to anybody who was OCD. There's stuff all over. It's a hunt and gather kind of place. And, you know, I'm sure there's some design to how things are displayed, but it's could be considered pretty haphazard. Nonetheless, I'm not sure to what degree that lowers the value of their house less than what it was valued at $373,000. And absent any other information from the homeowner that would sustain a lower value, I would probably be in favor of sustaining the value given by the assessor's office.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from board members?
This is Having. I agree with that.
Thank you. Any other questions from board members? Seeing none, I'll request a motion. Board Member Bland.
I move that we sustain the value of $373,000 for the property at 4936 Xerxes Avenue South.
Do I have a second?
Havig, second.
It has been moved by Bland, seconded by Havig to sustain the 2020 estimated market value at $373,000. I will ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion.
Board Member Bland.
Aye.
Board Member Havig.
Aye.
Board Member Reed.
Nay.
Board Member Tinker.
Aye.
Chair Anderson.
Aye.
With 4 ayes and 1 nay, the motion passes.
With that passing, we'll move on to item number 21, 3125 22nd Street East, case number 20BH-0201. It is, the applicant is Timothy Starr. 2020 city assessed value is $491,500. The applicant has submitted an appraisal from 12/31 of 19 of $355,000. Are there any comments or questions from the board members? If there are no questions or comments, I would entertain a motion. Board Member Bland.
Well, I'm not prepared to offer a motion yet. There is quite a difference between the appraisal and the city's assessment. I guess I'd like to hear other opinions. If you've had a chance to look at them. I mean, we're talking about, let's see, 355, is that to 491? Am I on the right page? Yeah.
You are correct.
Yeah.
I've reviewed the comparables, and to me, in the appraisal, and they do not seem unreasonable. The subject property is slightly closer to the river than a couple of the other properties, but other than that, Could not see any significant difference.
Well, I'm prepared to make a motion that we lower the value from $491,500 to $400,000.
Is there a second on that?
I'm flying low without the comps. I didn't get the booklet because I was in a different location, but if Faye is convinced that there's that much of a value difference, I will second the motion.
Was that a qualified second or is that a second?
That's a unqualified second.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Reed.
Well,
Board Member Reed, you might be muted.
I want to confer with you by looking at the appraisal. Was the high end of 423.5 on the comparables for this appraisal?
I have to go back.
Oh, okay. Well, that's just my comment that it might be better to go a little higher, to closer to 423, if that's the high end. But that's just a comment.
Yep, we have a motion on the floor. We will need to proceed with that. Board Member Bland.
Well, I would be glad to withdraw my motion.
It was seconded, so we need to vote on it.
No, the seconder can withdraw too, if Mr. Havig is willing to withdraw and entertain a subsequent.
I'm willing to withdraw based on that. I'm not looking at any paperwork, so I'm willing to withdraw.
Okay. The motion has been withdrawn. Board Member Reed, do you want to add your comments?
Yes, I was. So I thought it might be, I mean, that's quite a difference. 400 and 423.5, which was the high end, which I think it might be better to go closer to the 423.5, which was the high end of the appraisal, given the city assessor giving it a higher value as well.
So the city assessor has not been out to this property or provided a desktop appraisal. So.
Oh, okay. Well.
Pardon me. I'm not seeing the. Ms. Reed, I'm not seeing the 423. What page are you on?
The comparable 698 is the page number, sales comparison approach comments.
All right, let me see that.
It's a summary of the appraisal. And there were, lower appraisals. The high end was 423.5.
Okay.
I guess 400 wouldn't be unreasonable. I just, since there is a discrepancy, I thought we should go higher, but.
Okay, well, I certainly defer.
Well, there'd be equal argument going for the median as opposed to the high, but I will, unless there's more discussion, ask for a motion again. Is anyone willing to make a motion?
Board Member Reed, your microphone is muted.
I would move to increase the value from our original to 410,000.
What I needed worded in the form that you moved to decrease the 2020 estimated market value to.
Okay, move to decrease the current 2020 value to $410,000 for 3125 East 22nd Street.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Was that Board Member Bland?
Yes. Thank you.
It's been moved by Reed and seconded by Bland to decrease the 2020 estimated market value to $410,000. I will ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion.
Board Member Bland.
Aye.
Board Member Havig.
Aye.
Board Member Reed.
Aye.
Board Member Tinker.
Aye.
Chair Anderson.
Nay.
With 4 ayes and 1 nay, the motion passes.
With that, we'll move on to item number 22, 5352 First Avenue South, case number 20BH-0190. And, excuse me, that property is owned by Lauren Turner. The 2020 city assessed market value is $586,000. I'll start out with one comment or question to the city's assessors staff. The homeowner identified that the property next door had the exact same lot size, except the lot was valued $30,000 less. Is there a specific reason for that? How adjacent properties could be of the same size be valued so differently if they're both single-family residential? Either Patrick Todd or any of the assessors.
Chairperson Anderson, that is something I would have to ask staff to review. As you know, we did not do a review of these cases when they came in, but that is something that we can do for you if you wanted to move it to the afternoon session.
How do the other board members feel on this?
I agree. I had that same question. This is Bland.
Okay.
This is Patrick Todd, Chair Anderson and board members. Because we're valuing the total value, while I do agree that we should probably look into the land value and why there might be a discrepancy, the overall value is what we're taxing properties at and what the board is charged to look at. So for that reason, you wouldn't necessarily have to move it to this afternoon if the overall value is correct. Because oftentimes we arrive at the total value and then subtract out the land. So if you do find, or we do find there's a discrepancy in the land, if the value is correct, we'll just adjust the land. The overall value would not change. So that would just be my comment.
Thank you for the clarification. I think we can proceed then with this case. Is there any discussion or comments from board members? I just have one other comment. Having sold several properties in the area there, and with the information provided by the homeowner, I do feel his assessed value is high. I would be in favor of a reduction. Board Member Bland. Board Member Bland, you may be muted.
Sorry, I was talking to myself. I would tend to agree with you that it would make sense to reduce the value somewhat, although I don't believe the information provided by the homeowner was very helpful. So I'm simply going on what I know of the area, and the value approaching 600,000 might be on the high side, and I would entertain a idea of something less, but nowhere near what he seems to think that I don't know, let's see, it should be like 400,000 or something. So, yeah, that's my comment for the moment.
Okay. Any other board members would like to comment on this case? Hearing none, is there a motion that would be put forward?
Okay, I would move that we reduce the assessed value from 586,000 to 525,000 for the property at 5352 First Avenue South.
Do I have a second?
Tinker, second.
It has been moved by Blandon, seconded by Tinker to decrease the 2020 estimated market value to 525,000. I will ask the clerk to call a roll on the motion.
Board Member Bland.
Aye.
Board Member Havig.
Aye.
Board Member Reed.
Aye.
Board Member Tinker.
Aye.
Chair Anderson.
Aye.
With 5 ayes, the motion passes.
With the motion passing, we'll move on to item number 23, 3816 24th Avenue South, case number 20BH-0189. This property is owned by Robert Zirkel. It's a double bungalow. 2020 city assessed market value is $328,000. The homeowner has not provided any comparables, but has relied on the Case-Shiller price index, home price index. I'm personally not familiar with that index. Are there any comments from the board or questions? Or motions?
Yeah, this is Havig. I guess that this is the norm without any documentation to prove different. I believe we should just move on.
Okay.
Or sustain the value. You want a motion?
I would be happy to hear a motion.
What was the 2020 value?
The $328,000.
328. I make a motion to sustain the value of 328,000 for 3816 24th Avenue South.
Do I have a second?
Tinker, second.
It has been moved by Havig and seconded by Tinker to sustain the 2020 estimated market value at $328,000. I will ask the clerk to call a roll on the motion.
Board Member Bland.
Aye.
Board Member Havig.
Aye.
Board Member Reed.
Aye.
Board Member Tinker.
Aye.
Chair Anderson.
Aye.
With 5 ayes, the motion passes.
With that, we'll move on to item number 24, 3832 York Avenue South, case number 20BH-0185. The property at 3832 York Avenue South, the applicant is Chad Bogar. 2020 city assessed market value is $756,000. The applicant has provided an appraisal dated 3/23 of 2020 for a value of $714,580. Any comments from or questions from board members?
Chair, this is Havig. What was the 2020 value?
2020 value is $756,000. 2019 was $756,000. 2018 was $700,000. The Applicant's appraisal came in at $714,580.
Okay, was there any reason, was there anything that was deteriorated to move it down, or
Well,
was this
it
a
has a-
refi appraisal?
It doesn't, that part I'm not sure of. I can't tell you that based on what I can read here right now.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Anderson, does state that it is a refinance transaction assignment.
Okay, thank you. Comments from any other board members or questions?
This is Havig. Based on that comment, refi appraisals are coming in slightly lower than market value for protection. Has been my understanding.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, or motions? Board Member Bland.
I agree with Steve. That's kind of what we've been seeing with recent appraisals, very recent appraisals. They are, however, if they're based on the appropriate comps from last year, would still hold sway. I guess my thought would be a slight reduction in value, but not to the 714. So my thought is maybe like 740 would be my suggestion.
Okay, from the assessor's office, Malmquist.
Chair Anderson, I would just remind you that our date of assessment is January 2nd, 2020, and I believe the date of this appraisal is in March of 2020. And so just to be aware of what comparables they used and the dates and what we knew about the market when we set the assessment based on sales between October of 2018 and September of 2019.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, or motion? Bland?
Yes, that was my concern. I think the top part of the appraisal is cut off, and I'm not finding the addresses of the property, but I'm seeing that the appraisals were all, or the sales were all last year. So I'm okay with the timing of the appraisals.
Okay, and do we have a motion?
Yes, I will move that we reduce the value from, let me get back there, 756,000 to 740,000 for the property at 3832 York Avenue South.
Is there a second?
I'll second that. Havig.
It has been moved by Bland and seconded by Havig to decrease the 2020 estimated market value to $740,000. I will ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion.
Board Member Bland.
Aye.
Board Member Havig.
Aye.
Board Member Reed.
Aye.
Board Member Tinker.
Aye.
Chair Anderson.
Aye.
5 ayes, the motion passes.
With that, we'll move on to item number 25, 4139 30th Avenue South, case number 20BH-0180. The applicant is Joseph Broman, 2020 city assessed market value of $231,500, and the owner is requesting a drop to approximately $200,000. Any questions or comments from the board? Board Member Bland.
I felt the information that the homeowner provided was not particularly helpful or relevant, and I would move that we sustain the value of $231,500 at 4139 30th Avenue South.
We still have some discussion yet. Havig?
That was my question. What, without seeing what he provided, that was my question. So she answered it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? The photographs provided by the homeowner did show a fair amount of deferred maintenance on the property. And I believe that the city took that into consideration when they approached the value. Are there any other comments? Board Member Bland, do you want to restate your motion?
Yes, I move that we sustain the value of $231,500 on the property at 4139 30th Avenue South.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. Seconds. It has been moved by Bland and seconded by Tinker to sustain the 2020 estimated market value at $231,500. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion.
Board Member Bland.
Aye.
Board Member Havig.
Aye.
Board Member Reed.
Aye.
Board Member Tinker.
Aye.
Chair Anderson.
Aye.
5 ayes, the motion passes.
Moving on to item number 26, 4147 39th Avenue South, case number 20BH-0179. And this property is owned, or the applicant is Andrew Decker, and the 2020 city assessed market value is $394,000. The applicant has supplied an online appraisal. Are there any comments or questions from board members? I can't access that appraisal from this screen at the present time. Would someone be able to tell me what the appraisal came in at? Either from the assessors or from a board member.
I'm checking now, Chair Anderson.
Thank you. In the meantime, are there any other questions or comments? Oh, excuse me, Bland, board member Bland.
I'm talking to myself again. All right. Oh. Let me start over. The appraised price is $342,000. The appraiser used appropriate solds and included also some actives, which I think are irrelevant. So if I remove the actives and just looked at the solds, an appropriate value would be $355,000.
Thank you.
I'll
Is
try
there
not
any,
to talk to myself again.
excuse me?
I'll try not to talk to myself again, but let me know if I am.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from board members? If not, I'll call for a motion.
Mrs. Bland, I move that we reduce the assessed value from $394,000 to $355,000 for the property at 4147 39th Avenue South.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Havig.
It has been moved by Bland and seconded by Havig to decrease the 2020 estimated market value to $355,000. I will ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion.
Board Member Bland.
Aye.
Board Member Havig.
Aye.
Board Member Reed.
Aye.
Board Member Tinker.
Aye.
Chair Anderson.
Aye.
5 ayes, the motion passes.
Moving on to item number 27, 3912 45th Avenue South, case number 20BH-0166. The applicant is Nicole Meyer, and the 2020 city assessed value is $246,500. And the owner has sent in a few pages and photographs for us to review. Are there any questions or comments from board members? Board Member Bland.
The information sent in by the homeowner is not terribly helpful. It refers to wide variations of values, both of the land and the buildings. That is why we look at appraisals, because appraisals are designed to make accommodations for those differences. So simply to point out that there are differences is not particularly helpful. So based on that, I would suggest that we sustain the value.
Thank you. Any other board members would like to comment on this?
This is Havig. I would agree.
Thank you. The photographs provided by the homeowner identifying crack in the garage floor and deterioration of the fence. Many of those items do not overly affect value or affected significantly. So I agree as well. Would someone like to make a motion? Or more comments?
To save time, I'll be glad to make a motion that we sustain the value of $246,500 on the property at 3912 45th Avenue South.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Bland and seconded by Tinker to sustain the 2020 estimated market value at $246,500. I will ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion.
Board Member Bland.
Aye.
Board Member Havig.
Aye.
Board Member Reed.
Aye.
Board Member Tinker.
Aye.
Chair Anderson.
Aye.
With 5 ayes, the motion passes.
Okay, we have reached 11:40. I believe we will recess. Would someone from the assessor's office confirm the times of the recess?
Yes, unless Jackie has anything else to add, I believe we recess now and then we reconvene at 12:40.
Does this require a motion to recess or anything on that order?
No, Mr. Chair, if there's no objection by the members, the board will be in recess until 12:40 p.m.
Okay, as a matter of, do we log off now and log back in, or do we just mute our microphones and cameras?
Correct. You will need to, this meeting will end, and then we will begin in a new session at 12:40.
Okay, please make sure we all have the links for that. Thank you.
Thank you.